On a quiet morning in 1917, a single ship drifted through Halifax Harbor. No one saw it as a threat, but within minutes, it would trigger one of the most powerful explosions the world had ever seen. Before we break down what really happened, subscribe now, because the stories on this channel reveal hidden disasters that change history forever. The city of Halifax continued its morning as if nothing was wrong. The harbor remained calm, and people stayed focused on their daily routines. Workers moved through the streets. Ships passed quietly through the narrow channel, and families remained inside against the cold winter air. From a distance, the burning ship in the harbor still looked like a small accident, something unusual but not dangerous, something that would be handled and forgotten. But what no one on the shoreline understood was that this was not an ordinary ship. The Mont-Blanc was carrying one of the most dangerous cargo loads ever brought into a civilian harbor. Its hull was filled with TNT, picric acid, and other highly explosive materials, carefully stored but extremely unstable under heat. And now, that ship was on fire, drifting slowly toward the city. Inside the vessel, the temperature was rising, pressure was building, and the chemicals were reacting in ways that could no longer be controlled. The crew had already abandoned the ship, fully aware that staying on board meant certain death. But they had no way to warn the thousands of people watching from the shore, and so the city remained still, watching, waiting, unaware that every passing second was bringing them closer to disaster. Along the waterfront, people gathered to observe the smoke rising into the sky. Some stood at windows. Others walked closer to the docks, drawn by curiosity. It was human nature to watch, to try to understand what was happening. But in this case, that instinct placed them directly in danger. Minutes passed, and the fire continued to grow. The ship drifted closer, its flames now clearly visible, the smoke darker, heavier, spreading across the sky. And still there was no alarm, no evacuation, no warning that could push people away from the harbor at that moment. The entire situation depended on time, and time was running out. At exactly 9:04 in the morning, the Mont-Blanc exploded. The blast was immediate and overwhelming, a sudden release of energy that tore through the harbor and into the city. The shock wave traveled faster than sound, meaning that destruction reached buildings before people could even hear what happened. Windows shattered instantly, structures collapsed, and people were thrown to the ground without warning. The explosion created a massive fireball that rose high above the city, visible for miles in every direction. The force of the blast was so powerful that it generated a pressure wave similar to a massive earthquake. People miles away felt the ground shake beneath them. Some believed a natural disaster had occurred. Others thought the city was under attack. But no one had a clear answer. Near the harbor, the destruction was immediate. Entire buildings were flattened, streets were filled with debris, and everything that had once felt stable was suddenly gone. But beyond the physical destruction, there was confusion. People struggled to understand what had just happened. Communication lines were broken, emergency response systems were overwhelmed, and fires began spreading across different parts of the city, fueled by broken infrastructure and scattered materials. The explosion had not just destroyed buildings, it created a chain reaction of chaos. In the moments after blast, survivors began to move. Some searched for family members, others tried to escape the damaged areas, and many simply stood in shock, unable to process what had happened. Among them were ordinary people, workers who had just started their day, families who had been inside their homes, children who had been watching the harbor out of curiosity. Their experiences were different, but they were all connected by the same moment, a single instant that changed everything. As the hours passed, rescue efforts began, but they were difficult. Roads were blocked, buildings were unstable, and the scale of the disaster made coordination nearly impossible. People worked together, helping each other, pulling survivors from debris, and tried to bring order to a situation that felt completely out of control. By the afternoon, the full scale of the disaster was becoming clearer. Entire neighborhoods had been affected. Thousands of people were left without homes, and Halifax was facing one of the most devastating events in its history. But the deeper question remained, how could something like this happen? And the answer was not simple. It was not just the explosion itself, but everything that led to it. The presence of a ship carrying massive amounts of explosives into a busy harbor, the lack of clear communication between vessels, the absence of warning systems that could alert the public, and the failure to recognize the danger in time. Each of these factors played a role. each small decision contributing to the final outcome. And when they came together, the result was unstoppable. In the years that followed, the Halifax Explosion became more than just a historical event. It became a turning point. It changed how dangerous materials were transported, how ports were managed, and how safety systems were designed. It showed that risks must be understood before they become disasters, and that preparation is not optional when dealing with dangerous materials. It also revealed something deeper about human systems, that disasters are rarely caused by a single mistake. They are the result of multiple small failures aligning at the worst possible moment. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: that danger does not always announce itself. Sometimes it exists quietly within normal life, hidden beneath routines and everyday decisions, because on that morning, nothing felt wrong, nothing seemed out of place. And yet within minutes, everything changed, and more than a century later, the Halifax Explosion still reminds us that the most dangerous events are not always the ones we expect. Sometimes they begin on the most ordinary of days, when everything feels completely safe.